We know problems occur when people don't see ethical issues, and there are also problems that develop when people know deep down that something is wrong, but they find some way to rationalize not speaking up about it. Scholars Frederick Bird and James Waters refer to this as moral muteness. Moral muteness is when people either don't voice moral sentiments or they communicate in ways that obscure their moral beliefs and commitments. In a study of people working in advertising agencies, Patrick Murphy and I found that moral muteness was supported by a number of rationalizations. And we think that these rationalizations are applicable to business more generally. For example, one common rationalization was that ethics is bad for business. As one person said, if you bring up ethics, people will think that you don't have business savvy. They say, if you're going to talk like that, go run a church.
In campus-wide elections, we have an election code. Things range from you can't spend over a certain amount of money, you can't talk to certain people about your campaign before a certain date. The main reason I stayed silent was because I wanted to win. We all want to win.
The fact of the matter is, when push comes to shove, many people would prefer to win than to be ethical. But this is often a short-term approach that can actually hurt both the individual and the organization in the long term.
In one of the organizations I'm in here on campus, there is a very strong subculture that is not in line at all with what I feel like is the mission of our organization. I guess by the university's definition, there has been some hazing over the past couple of years, and I think that's despicable. It's difficult for me to speak up because these are my friends, one, and I don't want any harm to come to them. I value my relationships with these people, and I don't want to affect those adversely. But it's also difficult because if the administration was to find out what we do, even if it's unofficial, that could lead to potentially our kicking off campus.
Moral muteness can be supported by another kind of rationalization that involves a competing goal, something that seems like a higher good that trumps moral concerns. But usually, the analysis of the other goal is superficial. For example, the rationalization, the client is always right, can lead to a pleaseaholic syndrome in which you don't tell your client things they don't want to hear. Like moral concerns, there's a big difference in a trusted business advisor and a pleaseaholic. Trusted business advisors sometimes have to give uncomfortable advice in order to do their jobs well. Pleaseaholics may feel like they're doing their jobs well in the short term, but in the long run, research shows that a different type of relationship is more productive and more profitable.
I had a friend who did that for money at some point, wrote essays for other people, and I turned a blind eye to it because I know the right thing would be, I should turn this into the disciplinary council or the omnibuds person or somebody at the university. I was trying to rationalize this is the higher good, is that they are doing something to put themselves through school, not thinking about, the unethicalness of the person who's buying the paper not actually earning their grades, or them messing up the system or ruining the credibility of undergraduate students overall.
Self-interest is a particularly compelling rationalization that can mute moral concerns. And rationalizations related to self-interest can take many forms, such as, I don't want to rock the boat because I could make some enemies. I need to be seen as a team player rather than a tattletale. I don't want to mess with a winning formula. Often, rationalizations such as these frame self-interest in short-term rather than long-term ways.
So in my theater class last semester, we had these take-home quizzes that we completed over Blackboard. The whole issue for me was, are you allowed to use your notes on this take-home exam when the teacher doesn't clarify whether or not she expects that you take this by yourself or not? So then that's where the rationalizations of ethics come in. Well, she knows if it's a take-home exam, then people are gonna use their notes. She has to know that. You don't want to rock the boat. If you rock the boat too much, then you don't get to be in the boat anymore. They throw you out.
Probably if I knew someone was struggling with some sort of ethical thing about reporting someone for unethical behavior, probably the first thing I'd be telling them would be to check to make sure to protect yourself, honestly.
One way to avoid moral muteness, obviously, is to make a habit of talking about issues with people whom we trust. When we raise concern, we can position ourselves as someone who's trying to help the organization, to protect it from problems, rather than as someone who is trying to slap hands or judge. Often making persuasive arguments by illustrating the potential consequences for individuals and for the organization can be helpful. And it's important to view our role as that of a trusted business advisor, an indispensable professional in any organization.
People have a very cynical view of the world, and I think that is what needs to change. People need to believe that people have the best of intentions, and a lot of times they don't, which is why it's so hard.
There's a massive internal conflict, and it's me balancing what I know is right versus my relationships with people.
As easy as it is to talk about it in a business class, in a case in terms of a company, or in the terms of conducting this interview, oh, I would definitely stand up. It's a completely different thing when you're actually put into that situation.
A lot of times the benefit goes beyond, oh, I was able to stand up for what I believe in, or I was able to stick up for myself. There's more benefit than that. You're setting an example for other people.
One person could change the world, and one person can be brave and stand up for what they believe in, and people will listen.